Namaste, Sanoni Snowflake here with the Shinto's yoga experience. The Shinto's yoga experience with Shinto self-empowerment, Sanoni Snowflake here. And we've got Overcoming Trauma Through Yoga, Reclaiming Your Body by David Emerson and Elizabeth Hopper, PhD. Forward by Peter A. Levine. We've got a book of his, of Trauma Proofing Your Kids. I think it's on our Shinto Self-Empowerment channel. And Stephen Cope. Introduction by Bessel A. van der Kolk. That name's familiar as well. At last, an engaging, accessible, theoretically grounded guide for the safe and effective use of yoga to heal from trauma. With a rich understanding of both the practice of yoga and the legacy of trauma. The authors skillfully weave together theory, research, mindfulness, case vignettes, yoga instruction, and more into a clear and compelling argument for reclaiming the body through their trauma-sensitive, modified yoga. Innovative and practical, this book is an indispensable resource for traumatized individuals, yoga teachers, clinicians, and anyone else who is looking to rediscover the natural intelligence of the body. Pat Ogden, PhD, founder of the Sensorimotor Psychotherapy Institute and author of Trauma and the Body, a sensorimotor approach to psychotherapy. The trauma-sensitive yoga program, developed by the authors through practical and clinical experience, incorporates the best that yoga has to offer with what will benefit trauma patients safely and comfortably. From Satbir Singh Khalsa, PhD, Assistant Professor of Medicine at Harvard Medical School and Director of Research for the Kundalini Research Institute. Trauma survivors, whether from abuse, accident, or war, can end up deeply and profoundly wounded, betrayed by their body for failing to get them to safety and for causing them pain. To fully heal from trauma, a connection must be made to oneself, including one's body. Overcoming trauma through yoga introduces trauma-sensitive yoga, a modified yoga program developed at the Trauma Center at Justice Resource Institute, expanding beyond traditional talk therapies that only focus on the mind. Trauma-sensitive yoga allows trauma survivors to cultivate a more positive relationship with their bodies through mindfulness, breathing, and gentle yoga exercises. The book provides an in-depth description of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, explores the 4 key characteristics of trauma-sensitive yoga, and presents a trauma-sensitive yoga practice sequence that can be incorporated by home practitioners, yoga teachers, and therapists. Recommendations for integrating yoga-based interventions into therapy and suggestions for building a trauma-sensitive yoga class are rounded out by valuable case stories. We would like to dedicate this book to survivors of trauma everywhere. Acknowledgements. I would like to thank Richard Grossinger and Lindy Howe at North Atlantic Books for being so kind and generous and for believing in our topic. I would also like to thank Jessica Survey, specifically, along with everyone else at North Atlantic Books who had a hand in this final product. What a fantastic, patient, and professional group. Thanks to Dana Moore, Jodie Carey, and Jen Turner for their specific contributions to the development of the Trauma Center yoga program, and to all of the other wonderful yoga teachers who have been involved with the program. Deep gratitude to Bessel A. Vanderkolk for being a champion of yoga in the field of trauma, and for being somebody whom I am proud to call teacher. To everyone at the Trauma Center, Joseph Spinazzola, Margaret Blaustein, and Ritu Sharma in particular, thank you for supporting me and nurturing the yoga program with your tremendous intelligence and generosity. Finally, thank you to my family, especially Mandy and Hazen, and to my friends for supporting me throughout the writing process and for giving me a reason to get up each day. David Emerson. I would like to thank my mentors and colleagues at the Trauma Center for guiding and supporting my learning about trauma treatment and for giving me my professional home. Thanks to Dave for his calm presence, enthusiasm, and kind spirit in his leadership of our yoga program. Thank you to the therapists and yoga instructors who have attended our workshops, and to the women and men who have attended our yoga classes, for generously sharing their own experiences and giving us much food for thought. Many thanks to our Executive Director, Joseph Spinazzola, for his invaluable contributions to our manuscript and for supporting this project from start to finish. I also want to thank my clients who have shown such strength and resiliency and who are my greatest teachers. Elizabeth Hopper. Contents. Foreword by Peter A. Levine, PhD. Foreword by Stephen Cope, NSW. Introduction by Bessel A. Vanderkolk, MD. 1. Reclaiming your body. 2. Traumatic stress. A brief history of traumatic stress and trauma treatment. Historical views on mental health symptoms. Link between traumatic events and symptoms. Veterans and traumatic stress. So I think our slow cooker lid's just making some really funny noises. I think it's okay. Veterans and traumatic stress. expansion of the application of the PTSD diagnosis, modern-day treatment models for post-traumatic stress, complex trauma and the limitations of available treatment models, more recent treatments, the future of trauma treatment, trauma and the survival response, the impact of trauma, yoga as trauma treatment. 3. Yoga, the origins of yoga, yoga in the West. 4. Trauma-sensitive yoga, the need for trauma-sensitive yoga, key themes of trauma-sensitive yoga, experiencing the present moment, making choices, taking effective action, creating rhythms. Rhythm has your 2 hips moving. 5. For survivors, developing a trauma-sensitive yoga practice, an at-home practice. 6. For clinicians, integrating yoga-based practices into the therapy office, matching yoga-based interventions to goals, creating present moment focus. That's what this does for us. It is, isn't it? Well done. Developing mindfulness skills, building curiosity and developing tolerance for experiencing sensation, changing the relationship with the body, centering, grounding, building affect regulation skills, breathing practices and affect regulation, practicing choice, integrating aspects of experience, increasing confidence, building connection to others, addressing challenges in introducing yoga-based strategies into the therapy office. 7. For yoga teachers, building a trauma-sensitive yoga class, language, assists, teacher qualities, environment, exercises, responding to triggered reactions in a yoga class. Before we did our teacher training, sometimes I remember one, pretty soon on, I remember doing a twist. It was just like I wanted to get my hand inside my guts and just pull everything out of the way. It was just like all crowded. Another time, we were actually in high spirits. It wasn't like we were going in anxious or anything. We actually went in and we were feeling okay, because we used to get quite anxious going into yoga classes and groups of people. How we managed to do our teacher training is beyond me. And yeah, we did a twist and straight into a reaction, because we didn't know about any of this then. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't move. I couldn't even take myself to the side of the class. I just had to like bawl my eyes out and just like lay down. And I think we were near the front of the class as well. That's probably when we moved to the back of the class. And then there'd be other times when I'd do a headstand and that would just have us, and we'd have to like leave the class and go outside and calm ourselves down for about 10-15 minutes, because we'd just be in hysterical tears. So yeah, there's always so much releasing and stuff that goes on in yoga. It's amazing, but if someone doesn't know about this stuff that they've got in themselves, it can be really confusing and really daunting, and can put you off doing something that's actually going to be really beneficial for the long run. The diatomaceous earth, honey, raw, unpasteurized, unfiltered, etc., organic honey, and the biocide vinegar. And we've had our extra strong turmeric and piperine, 5-HTP, and our live bio prebiotics, is it? Or probiotics, I think it is. Prebiotics is the fiber of, I think it's 50 billion we've got, 30 or 50 billion. I think it's 50. Yeah. Conclusions, notes, index about the authors. Forward. Yoga has been practiced in the East for thousands of years, and its adepts have claimed numerous benefits, physical, emotional, and spiritual. Until recently, however, these effects have not been quantified scientifically. With Bessel and A. van der Kolk's compelling research on the efficacy and positive physiological effects of yoga in trauma recovery, a vital new application for this ageless health promoting method has been revealed. This should be of no surprise when we realize that a common denominator of all traumas is an alienation and disconnection from the body, and a reduced capacity to be present in the here and now. Indeed, some survivors of trauma are attracted to yoga classes. However, many more would be overwhelmed by a room full of other people deep breathing, sweating, chanting, and straining into seemingly impossible body postures. In this landmark book, the authors bridge this gap and offer survivors a gentle, step-by-step, mindful yoga that is tailored for their specific needs. They help survivors to develop a trauma-sensitive yoga practice that they can apply in the safety of their own homes. Overcoming trauma through yoga begins with a clear, accurate, and informative summary of what trauma is. It dispels common myths about trauma and invites understanding and self-compassion. The authors then help the reader to encourage present moment experience, to learn about making choices from inner impulses, to move rhythmically within themselves, and to interact positively with others. The next phase of the book encourages therapists to practice yoga themselves, and then helps these clinicians integrate yoga-based practices into their therapy practice. Finally, there is an informative section for yoga instructors to help them design trauma-sensitive yoga classes. The authors discuss how teachers can create a safe environment through the use of invitational, exploratory, and accepting language to promote inner experiencing. Further, they describe the qualities teachers need to cultivate in order to work effectively with traumatized students. They also give valuable advice on what to do if students are triggered in their traumatic reactions by different yoga postures and breathing patterns. In this way, the risks of re-traumatization are greatly reduced while healing possibilities are enhanced. Oh, and it's just like reminding us all the yoga workshops we went to, and whenever it came to pranayama, we could never do, which is the rhythmic breath control, we could never do sitting up pranayama. So automatically that would cause embarrassment because everyone else would be sitting up and we'd have to lay down. And even when we laid down, you couldn't focus on the breathing. It was just focusing on managing yourself not to start having hysterical crying fits and shaking. David Emerson and Elizabeth Hopper do all of this from the joint perspective of an expert yoga teacher and an experienced trauma therapist. And the more we did our yoga teacher training, the more we went into the body. And I know this now, I didn't know this then. The more we go into our body, the younger we get. So I suppose it was I then, but I suppose it's we now, would very rarely talk or communicate because we couldn't speak. Because if we did attempt to speak, it would just be a crackly voice, and the language that would come out would be really young and a little bit victimy, and we'd just get really emotional. And then we'd, be having to stop our body from shaking. Our body was always shaking. And with the EDS, you do a posture, and you're holding the posture and you're holding your muscles. But then all of a sudden it would just give way and everything would just your leg would just kind of collapse or you hurt yourself. I was always injuring myself. Sometimes we couldn't even make it. We'd just be stuck in bed and couldn't even get out of bed to get to it. It was once a month. It was, 2-year course. So it was just under 2 years. And we did it twice. And it was once every 4 weeks. Yeah. And while we were doing it, actually, that's when we deployed out to the Philippines to re-roof schools when Typhoon Haiyan struck. But yeah, the way the body and the fascia trains, like when you get into that tightness and eventually the tightness releases, the whole fascia train collapses and there's then no structure to the body to hold you in place. Yeah, we've got a mind full of knowledge. This well-conceived book is a tremendous resource for therapists and yoga teachers. And yeah, and then when we were doing yoga that we found out about the ETS, and bless, our teacher trainer was lovely. But for the first time in like, I don't know, 35 years, or I don't know, because I suppose 15 we really started struggling, so maybe 20 years, like a whole life has just been blackouts, memory losses. The more self-discovery and self-awareness and self-development workshops we did, the less we understood ourselves, the more blacker it got, the more we lost. And then suddenly there's this workshop on Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and everything's clicking into place. It's like, oh my God, I tick that off, it's that. And we got told to shh. And it's like probably the child was coming out, because it's like, oh my God, we've actually started to find some answers to some of this pain that's been going on for years. You know, there's a way out of this. And we got told to shh. So yeah, everyone's just always found us such a nightmare. There's no wonder we don't want to connect to people. We're doing it on our own. And then, of course, with the benefit system, you have to like take medication, you have to do this, you have to see your doctor, but no one can help us. And we tried going down the doctor route, and we tried going up to the specialist in London, and we were going to go to the specialist residential thing, but then suddenly our mental health was too unstable, so we couldn't go to that. So everything that we attempted to do through the system didn't work for us. So what are you meant to do when you keep getting let down and you keep getting re-traumatized and hurt more? It's like you're going to pull yourself completely away from other humans and humanity in the outside world if they keep just damaging you, especially when you know that you've got all the intelligence and all the skills inside of you to do it yourself, but then you can't do it because you've got no self-love, no self-trust, no self-belief. So we manage not to kill ourselves to not hurt anyone else, even though that's what we want to do to escape the pain. We manage not to flip into the dark, abusing altar and really hurt and really abuse someone else. But then the autonomic nervous system starts dying, and then we get put in a psych ward. But at least the psych ward brought the survivor out in us, and all the ones that had travelled the world and lived in the van on our own got us out of there. And it gave us self-love and it gave us self-belief. But for us to actually believe ourselves, from other people not ever believing us and not supporting us or having our back, we had to be put in a psych ward to gain self-belief and self-love. It's unbelievable. And it's almost a year, and we have done so much better doing it our way, not following the systems, not trying to do it how everyone else tells you to do it. Hence why we wanted to do these tonight before going to sleep, so that we can have a fresh day tomorrow. We've got an inside hammock in here. The hammock's great for doing yoga on, actually, and pulling your pelvis back, doing it over front. We've got the yoga silks from the ceiling as well that we used to have in our van to hang upside down on. But all of our upper body and the collarbones too loose, and we almost had a pretty bad, not an accident falling down, but our whole just shoulders and collapsing and really doing something in the neck. I think that was before the psych ward as well, actually. So we've been in there again, but we haven't been upside down for a long time on that. But yeah, the hammock's really good for bending over and doing things on. Oh. And the more clarity we get, the more connected we get. You know, we're only really properly just starting the healing now. We've got a bit of a ride ahead of us, I've got a feeling. But we've got all the knowledge, we've got all the books, And the body's amazing. The body's taught us so much. It really has taught us so much already. And then all the professionals, the sound, all the stuff, the courses that we get, or the free things that we attend online, because we've done loads of it. You get all these professionals coming in to speak. There's like 5 or 6 a night on the Global Sound Healing Summit for a week. And literally every professional sound healer that came on, we were like, oh my God, that's what our body's been teaching us. And it was just validation after validation of like, my God, the body's amazing of what it naturally teaches us to do. And then some bits obviously would be knowledge that we've different ones of us have had that's then like coming out and being remembered. It's incredible. And like yoga, I mean, there's 2 amazing stories. There's this guy who could barely walk, he'd been in war, and he'd done like so many, when you jump out of a plane, not parachute jumping for fun, but parachute jumping for war. And he just really damaged his knees, and he was putting on weight, and he just got over it. So he hunted for a yoga teacher, and no one would take him on. And then finally found a yoga teacher to take him on, and he documented himself and filmed himself every day. And it's just such a beautiful story, because you watch him struggling, you watch him constantly falling. We did just have the Venus energies, and we've gone into Mercury energies now. You watch him falling, you watch him just get up over and over again, and he does it for a year, and he looks amazing by the end of it. And not only can he walk by the end of it, but he can run. And then there's another story of this guy. He's got something wrong. He has something wrong that he needs to be in his insides, and he needs to be operated. But where it is, we're not great with stories like this because it's all, it's memory and stuff. But where it is, they have to take a lot of his internal organs kind of out and rearrange them, or intestines or something. And so, of course, we don't understand how the body fully works inside, or how to put it all back in the right place. And so they put it back in him, but obviously it wasn't quite right, and he got issues again. And but this time they said, well, we can operate on you again. And it's like, well, no, because you can't just keep operating on people. So we did yoga, and I think 6 months to a year, his whole insides had sorted themselves out again. So it's these types of stories that, with all that we've done and all the knowledge that we've got, from maths to science to yoga to sound healing to reflexology, aromatherapy, blah, 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 we just knew we could do it. But of course, the we's that know it, are locked inside, and we couldn't communicate to anyone, we couldn't talk to anyone, we couldn't get, shake it all out. We've got a shaking medicine book tomorrow. This well-conceived book is a tremendous resource for therapists and yoga teachers by engaging the wisdom of their bodies. It is a great companion and guide to those taking the journey of recovery from trauma to wholeness. Overcoming trauma through yoga is a gift for those taking the hero's journey of recovery and vibrancy. And that's Peter A. Levine, PhD, author of Waking the Tiger, Healing Trauma, and in an unspoken voice, how the body releases trauma and restores goodness. That's not the one we've got. We've got the Trauma Proofing Your Kids, which I think we got a few copies again. The books that obviously really spoke to us, the younger ones, I don't know, a few of the alters, it's like, oh yes. So if it speaks to a few alters, you end up like with 5 of the same books. It's like, oh my God, how's one meant to keep control of their finances when they don't even know what the hell's going on? And you've got, but at least we've got some good presents to, like, I don't know, when these channels eventually develop, we've got some competitions of some stuff that we can give away where we've bought duplicates. Because then we've got our fun tools that, like, to align the peripheral nervous system from a linear perspective, and then our fun tools to align the peripheral nervous system from a circular perspective. There's so much we've got to offer that's coming together. Oh, it's mind-boggling. We've finished that book. We don't know what we're doing now. So we've got one more to do, and then the poem, and then, yes, we're feeling tired, so we can go back to sleep, and not go back to sleep, go to sleep in the first place. Namaste. Welcome to the Shinto Yoga Experience with Shinto Self-Empowerment. I'm Sunoni Snowflake. And breathe.